I want you to imagine that it's 10 years into the future. You've set an appointment, you've connected with the right person on my team, you've made some decisions about your money for the rest of your life, and you decided to take control. And as you look back on those previous 10 years, since you made that decision, you're smiling because you're in the best financial situation you've ever been. And that's not a dream. That's a real possibility. I promise you, you're going to get great insight into your money and to the future of your money. I want to take you back to February 11th of 2020, when COVID-19 was officially called a worldwide pandemic. You were thinking about your health, and your well-being changed immediately. And since that time, you have been rethinking many different things. We're wearing masks. Food supply was short in the beginning. There's been social distancing. There's been lockdowns. A whole new way of thinking has presented itself to you since February of last year. Now, tonight, you'll be doing the exact same thing, except not thinking about COVID-19 and your health, but rethinking your financial health, rethinking your money. This is a dramatic shift for most Canadians, and we have Canadians from coast to coast that are joining us this evening. This will be a dramatic shift for some of you, just like it was back in February of 2020, when your life up to that point was just like it had always been. But suddenly you had to rethink where you were going, who you were going to be with, how you were going to remain safe. And that process is sometimes uncomfortable for people. And tonight, that could be the same thing. You're going to be thinking about what you've done in the past with your money. And maybe some of those things might make you uncomfortable. But I know, and you will know after our time together this evening, that you are your greatest asset and that you can have greater control over your money and not outlive your money. So the theme tonight is really money. And when you have control over your money, you have control over your life. And that's why Caleb Williams, my colleague, my dear friend of many years, is going to be such a good guide for you on this journey this evening. Now, Caleb is the founder and CEO of Better Wealth, a strategic partner of Ascendant Financial, and co-author of The End Asset for Canadians. Now, don't mistake Caleb's youthfulness for a lack of experience. The fact is that Caleb's got a tremendous amount of experience. He has personally worked with and held the hands of hundreds of families to regain control of their money and to put financial control back in their hands, not the banks, not the government, and not some loan officer. Now, health and well-being has been rethought by everybody on tonight's webinar. Whether some like it or not, some may be upset, some don't care, or some maybe think that COVID-19 is just a hoax. But you've been thinking about it. And when you think about something, you have to take action. You got to do something about it. And so as you heard me share earlier in this introduction, you've had to rethink your health and your physical well-being through this worldwide pandemic, who you were with, what you did, how close you got to people. The same thing needs to happen today. You've got to rethink your thinking based on what you're going to hear in this webinar. And what I'm going to ask you to do at the very end is, if what you're hearing makes sense, just like the actions you've taken with your health this past year, the actions on your financial future will be as simple as making an appointment, scheduling a time to talk about your specific situation. Nobody's going to ask you for any money or to make any kind of financial decision. We're only going to ask you to make a decision on an idea. Now, you're going to be asked this one question. Based on what we've discussed, would you like to proceed to the next step? You'll receive a link via email or text message to schedule a meeting and to be connected with the right person on my team. And if you decide to move forward and schedule that meeting, congratulations. And if you don't, as long as you leave happy, that's okay too. And then I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen in that meeting a little later on. And I promise you, you're not going to be sold anything. The only thing that you have to decide on is the action. Do you want to talk about what you're hearing today as it specifically relates to you and to your current financial situation? But more about that later. Now, we know that some people prefer to get books in an electronic version. We also know that a percentage of Canadians love to have their books in their hand. And if you're one of those people, you can get the book. It's only $24.95. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, join me in welcoming Caleb Williams. Caleb.
Jayson, I first of all have to say thank you so much. It is like just surreal. It's surreal to see the and asset for Canadians. And so I just want to thank you guys. I want to just say it is unbelievable reading the chats. Like the excitement that we have here tonight is unbelievable. And you know what I'm going to do, Jayson, is before I share my presentation, because I made a presentation for your whole group and I'm really, really excited to share this. I'm going to open up with my most embarrassing moment of my entire life, because I believe it will set the stage to open all of our minds as it relates to what we can learn about money. And so I want to take you back. I know so for some of you, it's not going to be back that far, but I want to take you back to when I was 12 years old. Now, to set the stage a little bit, I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I'm super short, and I have a reading disability. It's hard. Reading is really hard for me. In fact, my younger sister, Naomi, was a little bit taller than me, and she made it her goal to tell everybody at the time about it. And so we were at this camp, and it was the last day of the camp. And I remember just really trying to fit in, because I'm like wanting to make a difference, and I want to make friends. And there was a girl in the front row that I had a crush on, and each cabin we got up and did a skit. Now I was super nervous, and things have changed a little bit, but I was very nervous. And I remember getting on stage, and I just had to remember 2 lines. And I totally blanked. I don't know if any of you guys have had this experience, but I just went blank. And what made matters worse is I had a note card, and that note card had my 2 lines written on it. And because I was so nervous and I was like under fire, I sounded out every single word. I have no idea really what the play was all about, but I do remember the feeling that I had walking off that stage. And the next day I went to my mom in tears, and I'm like super short. I don't know if I'm going to amount to anything. Reading is really difficult. And she said this to me, and I want this to be a writer downer. She said, Caleb, the things that you can't control, like legitimately, I ate healthy. Like I could not control my height. The things that you can't control, don't worry about. Your identity is not in that. But the things that you can control, i.e. most things in our life, including reading, she said, you have a moral obligation to go all in. And it was that moment that I made a decision. I could have said, you know what, Mom, like I need you to just like be sorry for me. But it was that moment that I decided that I was going to take back control over the things in my life. And later on, I learned all these things about money. I learned all these things about business. I started to change my thinking, but I don't know if I would have had that positioning if I didn't have that moment back when I was 12 years old. And so I want you guys to know that, yes, I'm super pumped to share this message. And yes, we're going to learn a lot of things about efficiency and control and compounding. And it's really going to make a difference in how we think about money. But I want to challenge all of you and encourage you to say, today is a crazy day. The world that we live in is insane. But I'm telling you that we can take control over most things, even in a world that we feel like it's untouchable. And so with that, this is my beautiful family, oldest of 6 kids. I did grow, by the way. I know some of you guys are still thinking, well, now you're 14 years old. I'm a little older than 14. I grew up in central Wisconsin, and so not too far from the border. But I'm a hardcore Packer fan and just love the Midwest. I am going to be married to the love of my life in about 2.5 weeks. So separate conversation, but I'm always seeking good advice and marriage advice, and that could be offline. But I'm really excited to marry April, who's my beautiful fiance. So after a very embarrassing moment that I had, I really decided I was going to lean into working hard and figuring this whole thing out. So one of my first jobs was working at a chicken farm. Now, without getting super graphic, let's just say I have an appreciation for the chicken sandwich, and I'm grateful for the work that goes into preparing the chicken sandwich. And so I started making money, and for the first time, I just loved every moment of it. And so once I started making money, because I made $1 per chicken that I processed, I started reading books. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, but that was one of the books that I read. And I read Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I just started reading as a younger kid and realizing that reading was actually fun for me if it was something that could better my life. And I started getting introduced to this concept that our money could start working for us. That concept was fascinating to me. And yet I didn't realize why all my friends that were making just as much money as me, or even more, were blowing it on things. And so this idea that our money could start working for us and the decisions that we make today will have a ripple effect on the future was just, again, at 15 years old, that was a super fascinating idea. And when I was 17 years old, I wanted to know what I wanted to do. I still was a little bit self-conscious about would I be smart enough to get into school. And so I had this gentleman named Dick Judy, and he actually passed away. He retired and to be with the Lord. But I went to visit him, and he did one thing. He picked up his phone and got me a job at a bank. He said, "Young man, I love your energy. I love your excitement. You need experience." And so, Jayson, at 17 years old, I walk into Community First Bank, not knowing anything other than I'm going to give it my all and do everything that I can. And I work in there. And when the CEO of the bank, who became like a second father to me, he said, "Caleb, what do you want?" I pretty much said, "I want to take over the bank someday. I want to learn everything there is to know about money and be super valuable." And so I worked in our marketing department. I worked in our loan department. I got a job working in our investment department. And I thought I arrived, Jayson, because as the investment assistant, I, for the very first time, had my business cards, which was great. It was Caleb Williams, investment assistant. But then my life radically changed. When I was 19 years old, I was going to a university in our town, living at home, working at the bank. And the guy that was running our investment department took another job, and I became one of the youngest people in the country. To take on a massive responsibility. We're talking corner office, bank phone, bank computer. I was responsible for over 300 people's financial lives. Now, I was challenged by the same guy who was the CEO of the bank. He said, "Caleb, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." And I like leaned into that because he was like, "Caleb, I 100% believe in you, and I've seen how hard you've been working, and I know that you're going to do the right thing." So if you can imagine, I had this mission that I was going to help people see and reach their highest potential. Like that was something that I was really clear about. Like this was something that people ask, "Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you get so passionate? Why do you write? Why am I on speaking to all my fellow friends in Canada?" It's because I believe that we have a God-given ability and purpose, and I believe so many people have so much potential in their life, and they're reaching a fraction of that. And I'm not going to say that money is the only reason, but I'm going to say money is up there. And I saw the brokenness. Now, on one hand, you can imagine I'm 19 years old. I'm like taking over this corner office. I thought I arrived. Like, I'm like, man, this is incredible. Like I'm going to school for business and finance, and I'm 19 years old, one of the youngest people in the country, and I have this amazing gig. This is incredible. But then when I started working, I realized when people would walk into the bank, maybe like some of you on this webinar, like, what is going on with this kid that looks like he's 15 years old? They walk in, and I experience what I now call the 10 minutes of horror. 10 minutes of horror goes like this. You sit down, I shut the door, you realize that I'm not just the assistant, I'm the financial guy, and you think, I have grandchildren older than you. How in the world is someone like you going to help me with my money? The sad reality is I had my own 10 minutes of horror because I started realizing that people did not have any clue what was going on in their financial life. And so when we look at, like, there's a couple themes here, and Jayson and I have had many conversations. If we don't understand the problem, the solution doesn't matter. And so many people want to talk about their widget or product or solution, but at the end of the day, if we don't know at the core problem that we have, we're not gonna really care about the solution. So as I'm going through these next slides, I want you to think about what is the thing that you're struggling with? What is the thing that's keeping you up at night? What is the thing that you wish you could have freedom from? I just realized a couple things. A lot of people don't have any savings. Like we don't have a system to help us save money. The amount of debt that I was experiencing working with people at the bank was unbelievable. And then the people that were saving money or were investing money, they weren't maximizing their growth long term. And then I remember one day there was a couple that came in. They worked their entire life, Jayson. They worked their entire life, and they walked in and they said, "Caleb, I want to retire next year." And I remember like opening up their accounts and having the conversation about retirement not being a reality because nobody was willing or sat down with them in their entire life. This person, who I love dearly, worked their entire life and didn't even understand the thing that they were working for. And I just remember sitting back and saying, like, that can't be. And then taxation. Like, majority of people, even in the financial space, are not educating us about the future of taxes and how that will affect us. And then I just realized that people in the plans that they were building had no flexibility, had no control. And so here are some of the money myths that we've been taught. And let me know. I'm not reading the chat right now, but let me know if this resonates. Number one, we're taught to take all the risk. The definition of risk is your chance of loss. Only in North America are we taught increase your chance of loss and you'll be better off. So we're taught to take all the risk. We're taught to postpone tax, not get out of paying tax. Just say, oh, we're going to kick the can down the road to an unknown date. We have no idea what the tax rate's going to be. We have no idea what the tax threshold's going to be. And oh, by the way, the government does a great job managing money. I'm sure it's going to be fine. So we're taught to take all the risk, kick the can down the road with tax. We get penalized for using our money throughout our life, and we give up total control in the process. The biggest problem, though, that's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the way that we think and use our money devalues them or us. Think about that. I just kind of made up a word, but it's kind of cool. The way that we think about our money, the way that you're handling your money, the way that you're saving and investing your money, you're devaluing your number one asset, which is yourself. I've seen it time and time again. People are like, I don't understand what you're saying. Look at how your money thing is working for you. And so often you're not first in line for using your money as a tool. The money as a tool is driving you. And so one of the things that I noticed, and I noticed this at a young age, and in reading books and mentorships that I would learn, I realized that all the people that I looked up to understood fundamentally that they are their greatest asset. Now, I want in the chat for you guys to say number one asset, because I want this to register. Because if this doesn't make sense, then all these other things that we talk about, it's gonna, quite frankly, it's not gonna land. I believe that you have the ability to create value, build relationships, make decisions, ultimately create value in the world. I believe that you are the number one derivative to make everything else in your life possible. Whether it's good or bad, a lot of times we have to look at the source of those things. And yet the financial industry does not set us up to show up powerfully in our life. And so, guys, at 20 years old, I'm like sitting in this, and yes, I'm like honored that I had this opportunity, but I'm also like, there's got to be a better way. And so I went out and went out on a journey, and you know what? I feel like a lot of people pitied me because they're like, okay, this kid, I want to help him. Like I want this kid to like make it. I was really passionate. And so I called authors. I pretty much every video that I watched on YouTube or whatever, I would call the person that was the source, and I would learn about taxes. I would learn about efficiency. I would learn about different strategies on how we could maximize our money. And I eventually discovered, I know all you guys know this, but the banks, corporations, ultra wealthy are doing the exact opposite. They're not even like, they're telling us to do one thing. Bay Street, Wall Street, the banks, they're literally telling us to do one thing, and they're doing the exact opposite. And yet they're the institutions with the skyscrapers. And so there's an unfair advantage. And it all really comes down to one word. And I would like you guys to write this word down. It comes down to the word efficiency. Now, one of my favorite definitions of efficiency is the ability to avoid wasting materials, energies, efforts, money, and any time in producing your desired result. So it's essentially, we really have to hone in. It's like you have your desired result, and you have to avoid all the things that get in the way, all the things that are dragging us behind. In one of Jayson and my mutual favorite books, Becoming Your Own Banker, Nelson talks about an airplane and all the headwinds that it's facing. It's hard to be efficient when we're facing so many headwinds as it relates to debt and interest and the amount of things that we're trying to face in our world. We have to get crystal clear on their desired result. Now, one of my favorite stories, and I share this because it helps us hone in on why, like, if we don't get this right, efficiency is not going to help. It's Alice in Wonderland. How many of you have read or watched the movie Alice in Wonderland. Well, there's a scene where Alice gets to the fork in the road, and the cat says something like, "Alice, where do you want to go?" And she says, "I don't know." And the cat says something super profound. The cat says to Alice, "If you don't know where you want to go, any road will get you there." I'm telling you, majority of us don't know where we want to go. And as a result, the world will take us wherever the average person is. And if you've looked at who's average and what average results are getting, I don't want any part of that. So one of the things that I want to challenge everyone here is think about this, maybe take a photo of this slide and think about where do I want to go? Because here's what's fun is if we know where we want to go, then we can reverse engineer it and figure out what is the most efficient way. Like I'm literally teaching you guys things that no one else will teach you because it sounds so simple. So for instance, I'm coming from the wonderful city of Denver, Colorado, and I'm just saying, okay, let me travel to the great place of Edmonton, okay? And I could walk there. So I want to make myself really clear. I know where I want to go. So knowing where you want to go is half the battle. If you know where you want to go, congratulations. Now I could walk there and it would take me 405 hours potentially. And that's like consistently walking. I did the math. That's like 16 days of walking 24-hour days. So we're talking I could maybe be there in a month. So I know where I want to go. I will get there eventually. But is that the most efficient way to do it? I could drive. Now I could drive, and that's now cutting potentially a month's trip into a 1 to 2 day trip. Or I could hop on a plane and fly. Now there's other factors. We have to look at price and we have to look at what our time is worth and other things. But at the end of the day, I don't know anybody that owns a horse and buggy or walks for a consistent living. I just don't. Because we as a society value efficiency, but yet in money, as it relates to money, we're still walking to our destination. And I want that to register because so many of us aren't having any of the tools that the wealthy are doing every single day. And it's the kind of result that we're just literally walking because we have nothing going for us. And we're not leaning into efficiency at all. The other example when it comes to efficiency is a cell phone. Now, I could do this. This could be, we could have a lot of fun with this. Who has a smartphone? And if you don't, and you have like a jitterbug, or maybe you're one of these people that like doesn't own a cell phone, I would bet that over 99% of people over the age of 18 have a smartphone. Okay. Think about the power of this thing. Yes, it's expensive. I've spent over $1,000 on the smartphone, but think about what it does. It's my GPS. It's my alarm clock. I have an incredible camera that I could do all my videos on. I can do email. I can call. I could literally be on Zoom. I bet there's people watching on their smartphone right now. I can run better wealth anywhere around the world with this phone. In fact, the phone, we have more technology today in our cell phones than what got us on the moon. Think about the efficiency of that. And there's a reason why the majority of people have them, Jayson, is because we do value efficiency. And yet, when I look at people and the way that we handle our money, it's anything but being efficient. And so this slide's really important to me because as I'm realizing some of this stuff, I'm going and trying to find a better way. And it's just, I mean, this slide could be 50 times of the pictures. These are just some of the people that have made a tremendous impact in my life. And so what I did was I looked back on my mission statement and it read, to help people see and reach their highest potential. I'm 21 years old and I'm like, okay, I graduated college a year early, which is a whole nother story, by the grace of God. And I'm living at home. I'm sitting at the corner office of my bank and I'm looking up at my mission statement. And I just remember this feeling deep down saying, Caleb, like, don't live life with regrets. And so I made the crazy decision to leave the bank and start this company on the back that I wanted to teach the same concept that I'm teaching you guys today. I wanted people to be more efficient and take back control of their wealth. And so people said, Caleb, you are crazy. No one's going to listen to you. You look like you're 15 years old. No one's going to do this thing on the internet. No one's going to, like, you are going to fail. And thank goodness I was a little bit naive. So I went out there with the belief that if people understood the message that I'm going to share, if people understood this, there would be a line outside the door. And so this picture is really special to me because this is the OG group. These were 3 people that were not paid, by the way, Greg, Julie, and Dan. They were not paid, but they believed so much in the mission. They believed in the vision that we had to help families take back control over their wealth that they said, you know what, we're going to bet on your mission. And so our first office, this is special for me, our first office, and by the way, I've seen Jayson's office is a little bit more bougie than this, was in the basement of a Papa John's building. Like you literally had to walk down these stairs. We got this office for $250 a month for the first 6 months because, again, I had $20,000 to my name and a dream. And so from there, I was thinking, what is the best way to share this mission? And so we self-published the book called The And Asset, which ultimately has been an international bestseller, you could say. We've sold almost 11,000 copies, and it allowed me to start a podcast and start talking to some of the greatest minds, some of the greatest financial minds I've had the honor of knowing and have interviewing. And I've been able to speak to hundreds and thousands of people around the country and around the world. And really, all of this stuff comes down to this one equation. It's one equation. And the equation is E equals MC squared. Now, I know some of you guys freaked out because you're like, man, I thought I was done with school. I don't want to have to remember this crazy equation that Einstein said. And trust me, I'm not that smart. We're not going to go into this. But I'm telling you, if you understand this equation, it is the secret to building wealth. It's like Einstein was smarter than we think, okay? This is what I mean by E equals MC squared. Efficiency equals your money compounded and controlled. In other words, E equals efficiency, getting your money or matter maximized by the ability to compound and control over a lifetime. If we can become obsessive about compounding and control, we will win in the end. Like, we will win in the end. We are being taught that you need to choose between one or the other, and I'm going to show you guys how you can have both. And it hopefully is mind-blowing. There's a reason I get so excited about this stuff. And so the 2 most powerful wealth forces are compounding and control. This is another thing to write down, maybe take a picture of the slide, because these 2 things we need to maximize. And the world is telling us that it's impossible to do both, and I'm telling you it's not impossible. It can be done. And so the real key, and again, this is so key to this message, is compounding and control are amazing, and we need to lean into both. So I first want to start by defining both of these forces, because again, sometimes we can say that and move on, but there's a couple of you that are like, okay, compounding, I've heard this. I've heard it said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. But what does that actually mean? Like, again, you might think like Einstein, I quote a lot, but it's one of these things that I think it is really important. Now, what's funny, a fun fact is Einstein probably never said this, but he's misquoted enough for saying it that I think at this point he can get credit indirectly because everyone thinks he said this. So anyways, if it's this 8th wonder of the world, what is it? Well, compounding is a function of 3 things. It's you need something. You need matter, you need dollars, you need something to compound, because 100% is 0, okay? Then you need to earn interest. And what many people will say is the most important thing to compounding is you need time. It's over a period of time. And so you get this hockey stick growth, and that really comes by money growing over time. And what's beautiful compounding is you take your original amount, and then every year it's growing not just on that original amount, but that interest. And what becomes exponential, what becomes 8th wonder, is when all those things continue to grow the rest of your life. Now, what was really interesting is when we were writing this book, I became fascinated because, we are told compounding is an amazing thing. Most people, when they think of financial planning, they think of compound for life. Like, we're playing the lifelong game of compound interest. But I think they're very hypocritical because they're the same people that say, well, at 65 or when you retire, take your money out. Why would we kill the goose that's laying the golden egg? If compounding is so amazing, why wouldn't we try to figure out strategies to keep our money continuously to grow? Because it's interesting that compounding is so amazing. Why aren't we committed to a lifelong strategy? We're losing out on 20, maybe 30 years of what the most beneficial thing to compounding is by taking out our money. And you'll see when you read my book that we are obsessed with this idea of every time you lose $1, you don't just lose that dollar, but you lose what that dollar could have earned you the rest of your life. And so it's very interesting. And one of the things that I probably hear the most about, like the story that people enjoy the most is the penny story. Now, again, I can't see you guys, but what I want you to know is if I asked you if I could give you $1 million today, or I could double a penny every day for 30 days, would you take the million, or would you take the doubling penny for 30 days? You take the million or the penny, okay? I want you guys to write that down because this will be helpful, and I'm going to be sneaky here. So what happens? You got day one, you got a penny. Then day two, it doubles, and you know, day 6 comes around, you're not even at $1 yet. And day 7, you're not at $1 yet. And day 8, you're at $1.28, and we're like, okay, now starting to sweat. And day 9, you're at $2.56, and day 10, and finally, at day 28, we're over $1 million. That's how crazy compounding is. If you want to know what $1 million worth of pennies are, this is in New York, what a million pennies looks like. And day 30 comes around, and you have over $5.3 million. Okay, so for all of you guys that chose the penny, you understand the math. Now, I'm going to create a twist here, because I could be like every other financial author and say, compound your money, don't spend your money, goodbye. But there's a real problem that no one's talking about as it relates to compounding. The real problem is most people are not getting real compound interest. Most people aren't getting anywhere close to compound interest, real lifetime compounding, because of losses, because of taxes, because of fees, because of time, because they're not funding anything into the machine. Write this down. Every time you lose $1, you don't just lose that dollar, but you lose what that dollar could have earned you the rest of your life. Every time you lose $1, you lose your worker for life. So let's look. What if in this penny example, I say we're going to have a 2% management fee, just 2%. That means every year, as your portfolio grows, we're going to take 2% of the portfolio. 2% wipes out over $2 million. 2% wipes out over $2 million of your wealth potential over those 30 days. What if we were going to say, okay, we're going to assume that 3 days we're not going to compound our money, meaning we're not going to lose any money. We're just going to not compound. This represents underperforming in the market. 3 days of not compounding your money takes it from 5.3 million to a little over 600,000. And what if we are just going to pay the 15% tax on the growth? This is not on the full portfolio. This is like assuming we're going to pay 15% every time we make 100%, we're going to make 15%. We have a little over $500,000. Now, when do we ever get one thing happening in a bubble? That never happens. Normally what happens is we have all these headwinds. This is what I mean by headwinds. You have taxes and fees and mismanagement and emotional decisions. And by the way, you then decide not to fund, and then you go buy a car, and all these things happen. And at the end of the day, you thought you were a genius for taking the penny. But if it was like most people, you would have nowhere near $1 million. You would have nowhere near $5 million. If we include all three of those things, a 2% fee, a 15% tax, and not doubling your money only in 3 out of the 30 days, you have nowhere near $5 million. You have a whopping $51,000 plus dollars. I want that to register, because this is an extreme story, but I share this extreme story because I think it does 2 things. It shows the power of compounding, and it shows the power of wealth transfers and inefficiencies. And so let's just take a look at a 19 period of time in the S&P. Now, I chose this because everyone says that the market is always going to go up. You're going to get 8% a year kind of deal. Some people say 12%, all this stuff. What I did is I cherry-picked, and I want to be very clear, I cherry-picked years from 1998 to 2016 because the average rate of return during that time was a little over 8%, and I write about this in the book. It's a little over 8%, but the actual rate of return was less. Why was it? Because every time you lose money, you don't just lose that money, but you lose what that money could have earned you the rest of your life. So now we're at 6.45%. But then when you add a 15% tax, now we're under 5%. And then, God forbid, you add a 2% penalty, and now or a 2% fee, now you're under 3%. So what's interesting is and I didn't include anything about using your money, or because it would make this a negative number. If you look at studies, You can look at what the S&P does, and you can look at what the market does. And I'm not bad mouthing anything, by the way. Okay. I'm just saying, if you look at the actual investor's rate of return, it's nowhere near what people are toting as averages because of emotion, because of fees, because of taxes, because every time we lose money, we don't just lose that money, but we lose the future lifetime value of what that money could do for us. And so the reason I put this in my book is I wanted people to start thinking and potentially rethink their thinking, because a lot of times we go on autopilot and say, this is what we're going to do, and we don't even look at what we're actually getting. If you're going to do a compounding strategy, you have to commit to lifelong, long term. You have to commit to long term. You have to commit to lifetime compounding. So we have to eliminate losses, taxes, and fees. So the principle number one is, if we're going to do compounding, we need to commit to a lifelong compounding, and we need to rid ourselves of anything that could hurt the future growth of compound interest. Okay? Second force. The second force is my personal favorite. Okay? If I had to choose between one, compounding, which is really exciting and math is awesome, or I had to choose between control, you guys, it's not even a joke. It's not even a hard decision. I choose control every day of the week, because I believe controlling your money is far more important than compounding. Although compounding is really important. And remember, I said you need to have both. So what's interesting is, when I think of control, I show a picture of Warren Buffett, because a lot of times he's noted, and he's out there for being known as the guy that's promoting, compound interest, and he's obsessed with compounding. But what's interesting is Berkshire Hathaway really makes all their money by controlling capital and buying companies. Trust me, if you are an executive at a company and Warren Buffett buys your company and you're not really killing it, there's a good chance that you're going to lose your job, because Warren Buffett is a great at what he does, but he's also a savage, and he goes in and he finds any inefficiencies and he cuts it out. He takes a business that's doing X and does X, Y, and Z, and he does that over a compounded period of time, and as a result is one of the richest people in the world. I would say that Warren Buffett, yes, compounding is just consistency of control. I think he's made all of his money by being consistent and controlling money. And over time, you've seen his wealth exponentially compound. It's just the difference of how we think about money. And so again, remember me opening up this whole slide, or this whole presentation. You are your greatest asset. We have to invest in ourselves. We have to understand, we are valuable. And so a question that I like to ask a lot of people is, what is the ROI? What is the return on investment? What is the value of investing in yourself? I want you to think about that, because a lot of times by the way, no one's incentivized to teach you this. No one's incentivized to talk about this, because if you say, oh, you should invest in yourself, that means I'm not getting paid because you're not putting it into X, Y, and Z investment. What's the investment? What's the ROI of investing in yourself? Now, I want to talk about 12 characteristics of a perfect asset. And the reason I go through this is I find that when we talk about control is a function of so many things. A lot of people, again, focus just on growth, and growth is not bad. Growth is amazing. But they focus just on that one thing, and they miss out on all these other things. And so we're going to go through this quick. But these are the 12 characteristics of a perfect asset. And as I go through these, I want you to ask yourself, with what you're doing with your life, what you're doing with your money, are you maximizing these 12 characteristics? So number one, safety. How important is safety to you? By the way, as I go through this list, not everyone's going to resonate with all of these, but figure out on a scale of 1 to 12, which one's the most important. So safety, easily accessible. Do you have access to your money? Is it getting competitive growth? Is it leverageable? We're going to get into this in a second. Leverageable is an incredible feature that we should all have on our assets. What's the importance of guarantees? Are you paying fees on the growth of your money? Is regulation a thing? Could regulation derail your ability to build wealth? Do you have contribution limits to how much money you can put into this asset? Is it creditor protected? Do you have deductible contributions from putting your money in? Does it grow tax-free? Can you use it tax-free? This is if I had to pick a perfect list, I could summarize a lot of benefits from this list. So how is your retirement plan holding up right now? So here's what's fun. This is not a good slide if you're colorblind, so I apologize. This is showing just a breakdown of in the States. And again, I want to be very clear that some of these things that I say like the reason I'm partnering with Jayson is his team is experts in Canada, right? I could tell you in the States, when we look at a 401k and IRA, and we look at a Roth IRA, which a lot of people like Roth IRAs because it's kind of the new thing. They're all government-sponsored plans. You can see that people usually do that because of growth, the hope of growth, and that they get some tax benefits, whether it's, you know, their money growing without paying taxes, or as it relates to the Roth, you pay taxes on the front end, but with the promise of taxes, not paying taxes in the future. With how our country's spending money, is it could be attractive. But you look, there's a lot of red. It's not, you're not going to get safety. It's not really easily accessible. You're not going to be able to leverage your money. There's no guarantees. You're paying fees, and it's not free of regulation. In fact, the government could change the rules at any time, favorable or unfavorable, and you're at the mercy of their decision making. Now, I remember sitting down with a good friend of mine who actually runs a tax company, and he's been working with very successful entrepreneurs, and everyone does the strategy of the and asset. And he said, Caleb, I became a true believer in the and asset when I understood this idea of hostage cost. And I'm like, Jake, what do you mean hostage cost? And he says, hostage cost, like, let me explain. Hostage cost is when you don't have access to your money, when counts are holding your money hostage. Like, what's the true cost of not being able to access your money? This is the scenario that he missed out on just because he could not access his money in his retirement. He had a $100,000 investment that he could make into a real estate, he could get real estate for pennies on the dollar, and he could turn around and flip that for 18 months later for $100,000 of profit. Okay, he could have doubled his money in a little under 2 years. Which, by the way, 18 months for flipping that's pretty conservative. But he could not get that because he didn't have access to his money. Think about how many times what's the true cost that we're facing because we don't have access to our money. And so a lot of people, what they do is they resort to a savings account because it's safe, it's easy, it can be accessible. There's guarantees that you're not really paying percentage of fees on the money that's in your account. The problem is you're not getting anything going for you long term as it relates to growth. You get no tax benefits. You're not going to competitively grow your money. And so as a result, you're getting crushed. So this is a question that Jayson and I both like to ask when we ask, what is the most profitable business in the world? Because what we should ultimately do is look at businesses that are killing it and model them. If you said the process or business of banking, you should get a prize. I would give you a prize if I could. If you guys said banking, you're 100% right. In fact, R. Nelson Nash, who has made a tremendous difference in my life and every single person on Jayson's team, he's the author of a book called Becoming Your Own Banker, and ultimately is the thesis of what a lot of these concepts are built on. He says, learning to control your financial environment is the most profitable thing that you can do over your lifetime. I'm telling you guys, I'm hammering control in multiple angles, but it's so important. Learning to control your financial environment is the most profitable thing that you can do over your lifetime. If we look at Bank of America, in 1 year that I looked at this, they brought in $860 billion of deposits. They paid almost $2 billion that year to all their shareholders or people. No, I said shareholders. That's wrong. All the people that deposited money at the bank. So you would say, like, wow, they almost paid $2 billion worth of interest. Like, that's amazing. They made $44.8 billion. What an amazing business model. Their profit was over 2,600%. Over 2,000%. And what do banks do? This was a question I had for the owner that ran our bank. I was like, what do banks do? Like, we literally have 24 employees. We have 3 branches. You pay us all pretty good money. We have expensive equipment. We have a vault. What do? Banks are institutions that just control money better than us. Banks are institutions that just better control money than the population, and that's why all the money flows to them, and that's why they have all the buildings, and that's why they give us suckers when we deposit money with them. Is because, yeah, they're paying us interest and it's amazing, but they're making a killing. And I would say, let's not hate on the banks. Let's learn what they're doing and apply it to our own life. And so I want to give you 5 principles of banking. I walk through this in my book, and I think this is one of my favorite chapters because I believe if we want a blueprint of wealth creation, we need to lean into this. Principle number 1 is flow. I want you to think about this. Banks and Bay Street and Wall Street are experts at this. Why do you think they incentivize us by getting our money before we even see it? What do I mean by that? Banks will usually incentivize you. They'll usually waive some fees when you have money flowing like flowing in direct deposit. A lot of times they'll get benefit from that. Wall Street or Bay Street, usually when it comes to like 401ks or government sponsored plans, want our money before we even it even hits our bank account. Why? Because they're institutions that love money flowing to them, and they're masters at it. If we are going to understand the power of banking, we have to figure out ways to get money to flow to us. Number two, they understand leverage. Leverage is probably one of the most profound thoughts that we could thought experiments as it relates to creating wealth. Every wealthy person has created leverage, whether it's their money, whether it's leveraging ideas, whether it's leveraging value, whether it's leveraging a team. Right now, as an example, I get to share this message and more than one person is hearing it. Through technology, we're leveraging a message, which is amazing. Banks make a killing on leverage, and they're paying us maybe 1%, charging maybe 4%, and making a 300% rate of return on their money because their investment is $1, they're making $4, and as a result, it's not a 3% spread, it's a 300% spread on their money, and so they understand how to leverage their money. Liquidity is super key. Why do you think everyone comes to the bank? Like everyone that needs money for a house or business or whatever comes to the bank. Why? Because they have access to money. They have access to the gold. One thing that Nelson Nash would talk about is the golden rule. Those who have the gold can make the rules, and those who have control over capital, people will flock to them. Collateral. It's funny. The business of banking goes like this. You're going to flow money to us. We're going to make money off of leverage. And by the way, you're going to put up your house, your car. You're going to take all the risk, and we're going to make a killing off of you. You want to do business? Doesn't really matter if you want to do business because we have the money, so you have to do business with us. They understand how to limit their risk through collateral. We need to be able to do the same. And finally, they understand the principle of velocity, which means they can do it multiple times. They're constantly money in motion. Another example of this is looking at a river versus a pond. Like who loves the idea of a river? Your money's flowing, it's powerful, and yet a pond is pretty stagnant, and a lot of nasty stuff can happen in there. It's the same example of we want our money in motion, and banks are an incredible institutions that have our money in motion. So again, I talk about flowing your money using leverage, liquidity, collateral, and velocity. We have to model, and we have to look at the people that are winning and apply it in our own life. If Albert Einstein's going to be quoted for saying compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, I want to go on record for saying that control is the ninth wonder of the world, and he who understands control might not even need the eighth. And I sincerely mean that. If controlling money is a double-edged sword, but it's an amazing thing, especially when we can lean in to really maximizing money as a tool. All right, so here's my dilemma. I wanted to build those two things up, but here was my dilemma. And I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but on one hand, I'm learning about the amazing things of compound interest. I'm learning that literally I was young, I still am, right? I could put money into an account, and over 30, 40, 50 years, that account could grow, and it could be amazing. But at the same time, I had ideas. I wanted to do things. I wanted to do missions trips. I wanted to invest in real estate. I wanted to start a business. But the problem is, by controlling my money, I was going to give up compounding. How many of you have been told that you either need to choose between compounding, retirement planning, and controlling your money? Like, I want some participation here. How many of you have experienced this tug-of-war with your money? It's like on one hand, people are saying, go for the long haul. And on the other hand, people are saying, no, control your money because you can compound that, or you can do so much more. And I'm like in this middle of this like really good really good ideas. This is definitely a first world problem. But at the end of the day, it was a problem.
Hey, Caleb, we're getting a lot of engagement in the chat window. People are affirming that.
Amazing. I thank you for saying that. I can't see anybody, but I'm doing my best to be an engaging. So that was the dilemma. And so I had a light bulb moment, and this ultimately the light bulb moment is why this book and this book are possible. And the light bulb moment is, why do we have to choose? What if you didn't have to choose anymore? What if you did not have to choose between one or the other? Why can't we have both? And it's funny because I can't really take credit for this because people have been doing this for over 100 years. Like if you look at the Rockefeller family and banks and corporations, like they all know how to do this, but they just don't teach the average person. And so if you like, as I've been doing research, it's like, man, Walt Disney did this to start, Disney World, and Ray Kroc used this to start McDonald's, and whether I'm offending everybody on this slide, right? Whether you, regardless of your political views, we had some of the most powerful people in the United States that actively use this strategy, and at the time of writing this, not every Fortune 500 company to date uses this, but majority of Fortune 500 companies use this strategy, this asset class. In fact, I went through banks and them being the most profitable business in the world. Bank of America, who profited quite a bit with a B, has over $22 billion of this asset class. And I was floored when I started realizing this. And it's like, what in the world is this? And it's life insurance. And when I heard this, when I learned this, there's two emotions that I experienced. Two emotions. The first emotion was like, I'm like, okay, this is awkward. Like I've always been told that life insurance is a horrible place to put your money. I believe that. I bought into ideas like buy term and invest the difference. And this is like kind of like embarrassing. But then I became extremely angry. I became angry because a lot of the things that I thought to be true turned out not to be. I became frustrated that I didn't know this sooner. And so I just want to make sure to make myself very clear. When I say life insurance, and when I talk about life insurance, I'm not talking about what your friend or relative got an internship to sell. Like I'm not talking about that type of life insurance. I'm also not talking about the kind of life insurance that your parents got. And I'm also not talking about the kind of life insurance that you see on TV. So I know it's confusing. Definitely these companies are not great at marketing, but at the end of the day, it's the contract that you enter in. It's the benefits that you enter in through this that make this so amazing. It really comes down to a special type of life insurance, and it's really using a life insurance contract. So I'm going to break this down. I'm going to give a life insurance lesson. All of you guys will know more than majority of people that are in the financial industry about life insurance. It really comes down to you. It's a contract between you and a company. So life insurance is a contract. I want you to think about that because we have to understand that it's a contract and we do some things and the company that we enter the contract with agrees to other things, and the contract is what makes things good or bad. We have to be obsessed about the contract. And so life insurance lesson 101 is if I had $1 million of death benefit, if I had $1 million of death benefit, meaning if I died tomorrow, $1 million would get passed down to the people that I cared about. There's a minimum and a maximum that I could pay for that million. Okay. Now everybody is in the business of wanting to pay the minimum. So why would I want to pay $10,000 for the same kind of coverage that I could get for $1,000? Okay. The first question that we have to ask is who determines the minimum amount of money that I pay for the million? In this example, the insurance company does. It makes sense because they are a business that needs to stay in business, and so they can't be giving free life insurance out. Otherwise, they would go under. They would have too many liabilities and they wouldn't be able to fulfill. So the insurance company takes on that risk. Who determines the maximum amount of money that we could pay for the certain death benefit? If you said the government, you're correct, and a lot of people don't get this right. The government are the people that make that decision. Why? Well, whenever the government limits something, that usually means there's some really big benefits, and you're going to understand that some of the best tax benefits and some of the best control benefits are through this asset class. And so what we want to be able to do is this is a mind shift here. When we talk about life insurance, I want you to think about this. I want to maximize the living benefits, i.e. I want to maximize the cash, and I want to minimize all the other insurance drags. So we want to maximize the cash and minimize the insurance. Again, majority of people, when they sell life insurance, they're trying to pay as little bit of premium as possible and get the most amount of coverage. We're doing the exact opposite. Remember, the wealthy, the banks, they're doing the exact opposite. We need to learn to do the same. And one of the aha moments that I had is like, you can take a person, you can fund a certain type of life insurance. I call it the and asset, and your dollars will grow for you the rest of your life without losses, fees, taxes. It's amazing. And you can also utilize it while it continues to grow. And it shows up incredibly powerfully in retirement. Although Jayson and I both hate the word retirement, it shows up incredibly well for our future. At the same time, it protects our money and our futures and our legacy. And through this equation, you can save a whole lot more and you can show up more powerfully. When I understood that life insurance was not an investment, it was not the thing that everyone was pitching. Before, I had a bad taste in my mouth about life insurance because people were saying, oh, buy this instead of this, buy this instead of that. Don't do real estate. That's too risky. Do this. And I just had a bad taste in my mouth because you're saying that a product can outperform my ability to build businesses and build real estate and all these other things. I think you're crazy. But when I learned that the and asset was not an or, was not an this, do this instead, was the foundational place that I could put my money, it could grow, I could still use it. And in a way, you could use your dollar in 2 places, and then 3 places, and then 4 places. I had that light bulb moment. I said, this has nothing to do with an investment. This is everything to do with how I think about saving and flowing of money and use of money. I'm giving $1 4 jobs instead of 1. And so this is in the States. In Canada, it might be slightly different. This is why I've partnered with people like Jayson. But you literally, when it comes to a properly structured life insurance policy, there's a lot of people that would be glad to set up poorly designed life insurance policies. In fact, a lot of people use my book and do a poor job. But overall, you get a lot of benefits. Your money is safe. It's easily accessible. It gives competitive growth when you actually line it up to the alternative places that you can put your money. It's leverageable, which you'll see is one of the most profound things that you can do with your money. You have certain guarantees. You're not paying a percentage of fees based on the growth. It's free of regulation. No contribution limits. You have creditor protection. You don't get deductible contributions, so it's very much like a Roth in that. But your money grows tax-free, and you can utilize it with other tax advantages. And you get a legacy death benefit that can be super profound as it relates to your legacy. And I could do a whole presentation on the power of generational wealth using an and asset and what the Rockefellers and other people did. And so when I learned this, I realized I need to start rethinking my thinking, because I always thought life insurance as a terrible place to put your money. And if over 3,000 banks have their most safest assets in this, if almost every Fortune 500 company has money in this, if some of the people that I've admired the most, maybe they're doing something, maybe they're looking through the lens of something else that I'm not looking through. And so one of the first things that I needed to do is I needed to understand how my money was growing while I was using it at the same time. Because really, if I could have my money grow for me the rest of my life and utilize it, that was the game changer. And so I want to introduce you to 3 types of people. I write about this in the book, but person number 1 is a debtor. And person number 1, we all know them. You might be one of them, by the way, is we go into debt for everything. We buy cars with debt. We buy our houses with debt. We buy college with debt. And it's this example of, I use the line, you don't have any money, you go into debt, and then you're on this treadmill of life trying to get back, and you're paying interest. And then you go into debt again, and you're on this treadmill trying to pay back, and you don't have any control. You're paying interest. Your money's not able to grow for you. So those are debtors. And we all know them. And in fact, some of us are struggling with debt ourselves. And then there's people called savers. And this is what I grew up on. I grew up on, you're going to actually delay gratification. You're going to save your money, and then you're going to buy that car. And you're going to do that again, and you're going to save that money and then go to college and pay cash for college. And then you're going to save your money and buy another car. You're going to save money and save up for going into business and all these things. And you're saving money. The problem with the saver is they're disrespecting the value of compound interest. And every time they spend $1, they don't just lose that dollar, but they lose what that dollar could have earned them the rest of their life. And they're indirectly financing everything that they purchase. Nelson Nash talks about you finance everything that you purchase. Now that's a provocative statement, because for those of you like me, when I grew up, I was like, I don't want to pay anyone interest. Well, you're either paying someone interest or you're losing interest. You can't have your cake and eat it too at this point. You're either paying interest or you're losing interest. And that was really powerful. And then when I learned about the and asset, I realized that this was, quite frankly, one of the only paper assets that allowed my money to grow the rest of my life. And there's a reason it's called the and asset. And I would be able to have access to that money, and I could do other things. Yes, there would be interest associated with that. There would be. But I would much rather pay a little bit of interest for the fact that my money is going to grow the rest of my life. And so I set up a system of being able to, borrow against my money, allowing it to continue to grow and be able to do other things like go on a missions trip and buy a car and do other things like asset-based activities like buy real estate and invest in businesses and invest in people. And as a result, I'm getting $1 to do two things. My money's literally growing to the day that I die, and I have the ability to do some powerful things as it relates to wealth creation. I want this to make sense. If this doesn't crystal clear make sense, and you end up scheduling a time with someone on Jayson's team, I want this to register, because if this doesn't register, the and asset is just not as powerful, because it is one of the only paper assets that allows at the foundation of your life to give your dollars two jobs rather than one, and it's exciting. So this is what I call in the book controlled compounding, because you can have control of your money while it compounds. It's very much like using a credit card versus a debit card. I don't know about you, but I use credit cards. I pay them off each month, but I get points for that. I'm literally getting points to do certain things that I'm already doing. Yes, could it be a problem if I didn't know how to use it? Same thing goes with the and asset. If you're not disciplined, if you're not coached well, it's not necessarily by default going to be an amazing thing. But if you are able to be responsible with your credit, I'm going to be going to some pretty cool places this next year because of points. That's just an example of credit versus debit. Now let's revisit that real estate flip, and you have that $100,000 investment, and you can make $100,000 profit over 18 months. Again, you could be the world's worst real estate flipper, but let's just say that this is the scenario. Let's say you had life insurance, and let's say it was just conservatively growing over your lifetime at around 4%. So over time, year 10, you have, 148,000. In year 30, you have over 300,000. And in year 60, you have over $1 million. So your money's in your and asset. It's continuing to grow. It's conservative. Nothing crazy is happening. But it gives you the ability to control your money. And let's say you can control your money at an interest rate of 5%. Okay, this is what I in my book call control cost. It's the cost of controlling capital. And let's say over 18 months that you're going to be charged $7,772 of interest. Would you be willing to pay almost $8,000 of interest in order to make $100,000 while your money continues to grow? It's just another example. We have real estate clients all over the country and world that utilize a strategy and understand the power of their dollars doing more than one thing, understand the opportunity of making money, and understand the power of their money continuing to grow. And it's an amazing thing. I again have a podcast, and I've interviewed the person that discovered the 401k, and I've interviewed people about taxes, and I've interviewed some of the smartest brains. Dr. Wade Fowle is the guy that's saying a lot of scary things about retirement. And Jayson Sanger, who created a software program that teaches people how to maximize retirement, and Barry Dykes, who's become a dear friend of mine, who's written the book Pirates of Manhattan. They're all saying the same thing. Retirement is going to be a disaster. A majority of these people subscribe to utilizing, I want this to register, utilizing the and asset just in retirement to maximize cash flow. I could go on and on. Why do people save for the future? It's to create cash flow. Why aren't we measuring the cash flow number? Why are we only focused on the rate of return? The reason is the institutions don't want us to focus on the cash flow number. They want us to focus on little carrots like rate of return. And all these people are saying, we got to wake up. We got to start looking at different strategies. And as a result, I have hours of content talking to people around retirement planning, using the power of life insurance in that. And when I think about the death benefit, Jayson, and I know that this affected us both, because this is ultimately the reason why we met. The person that helped me start Better Wealth, his name was Greg. He was in the original photo that I shared with you guys. He helped build Better Wealth, and he was like a second father to me. And I remember the day that I picked up the phone call that he called, and he wasn't feeling well, and he said, Caleb, I have stage 4 terminal cancer. And I remember walking this journey with him and seeing him fight and end up losing his life to cancer. And a lot of people say, like, Caleb, you have you're an old soul for being 25 years old. And I do, because I've seen a lot of things happen. I'm so grateful that Greg was one of my first clients. And as a result, he had a policy, and we actually did an episode on my podcast about how he used his policy very creatively. He got over 3,000% rate of return using his policy to buy cows, and they would raise cows as a family, and then they would sell the meat, and they would use their policy. They would make 3,000% and their money was continuing to grow. And what the most important thing is, when he passed away, his family had a lot of money get passed on to his wife and kids. And no amount of money will be able to replace the kind of life that he lived. But at the end of the day, it cemented in my brain the importance of creating a foundation of thinking long term and thinking generationally. And he would always encourage me. He would say, Caleb, be intentional and treasure every moment. And he even saw early on that I was all over the place. I very much wanted to do the right thing, but I was distracted. And he said, Caleb, don't forget the reason why you started. The reason why we started was for the family. The reason why we started was to lean in and cherish every moment. And I'm getting emotional just thinking about this, because at the end of the day, like, I'm super grateful for this idea of intentional living. And our whole company, our mantra is unlock intentional living, and you are not wealthy if you're not living intentionally. So a common question that people have asked is, Caleb, why haven't I heard of this? Like, why haven't I heard about this? And I'm just saying, who's incentivized to teach you? Is Wall Street, is Bay Street, are the banks incentivized to teach you this? Are companies that have government-sponsored plans incentivized to teach us this? Because when we do this strategy, we take money out of their system. And last I checked, they make money by us putting their money in their system. The tax advantages, there's amazing tax advantages in doing this. And as a result, do you think the government wants us all to maximize this? And unfortunately, life insurance is super misunderstood. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this and are setting up poorly designed plans and not teaching their people how to use it as an and asset. And as a result, gives the industry a bad name. Overfunding cuts the commissions dramatically. This is something I don't want to get too much into, but at the end of the day, doing the kind of policies, doing the and asset the way that Jayson and I write about in the and asset for Canadians, by doing the right thing, ironically, the person setting that up gets paid a lot less, but doing the right thing is always good in the end. And doing this, we also increase the service work. A lot of people in the financial industry are lazy. They don't want to have to do the work. They want to be able to do something once and then see ya. And at the end of the day, by teaching people, you're teaching them how to maximize the use of their money, and that creates more service. And then ultimately, it's just finding right people that are educated. There's probably less than 300 to 400 people in the world, and that might be an exaggeration, but there's not a lot of people that are competent when it comes to this strategy. And it's sad, but we're on a mission to making that a much higher number. And so I want to leave you with a couple things. Number one, what is the value of giving your dollar more than one job? The and asset, what it simply is just a foundational process that allows your money to grow the rest of your life, that allows your money to grow while being able to utilize capital the rest of your life, allows your money to show up powerfully in the future, allows your money to, quite frankly, protect your legacy. I would argue that you could save a whole lot more money when you have control over your cash. And as a result, it unlocks your ability to live intentionally, because you are your greatest asset and you have money at the foundation of your financial life that literally unlocks you to show up powerfully in your life. And so I'm on a personal mission to see 1 million people insured in the next 2025. So we're coming up on less than, we have about 4 years. I want to see 1 million people insured. Why? Because when people get the and asset, the foundation of their life, they are affecting not just their children, but their children's children. And that's going to have a ripple effect that is literally going to take us from thinking like in scarcity and help us live more abundantly. And just think, Jayson, how many amazing things are going to happen when people not only protect their families, but their money is starting to work for them, and they're leaning into control, but they're not disrespecting the value that their money can grow the rest of their life. And so that is why I embarked on this very exciting journey to take the and asset to Canada, because I've had so many people reach out and say, Caleb, I've read your book. I love it. How can I work with you? And I say, I know a person that I know, like, and trust, that I would refer my own parents to them if they were in Canada. And his name is Jayson Lowe, and he has an incredible team. And so what we've ended up doing is we've partnered together to come to you with this message, because at the end of the day, I do this in the States. And if you have people that you know in the States and they need to hear about this, I would love to serve them. That's what our firm does day in and day out. But instead of me trying to go into uncharted waters, I decided to partner with someone that is already leading the industry as it relates to this. And Jayson, I'm super pumped to get this book in the hands of my fellow brothers and sisters in Canada and helping them take back control. And so what I just wanted to end with is that, like, Jayson and his team are going to do something incredibly generous. They're going to do something incredibly generous. Like, they're willing to personally chat with you. And I'm just saying, like, I would absolutely love for people to take advantage of that, because what I always say when it comes to clarity is the and asset might not be a right fit for you. I'm not going to stand up here and say the hundreds of people on tonight that the and asset is the solution to all your problems. It's probably not. But what I can tell you is that if you talk to somebody that can understand where you're at, can start analyzing where your cash flow is going and what's going on with your personal life and where you want to go, it's very clear. Is the and asset and is a strategy like this going to help you get closer to your desired result, or is it going to take you farther? And if it helps you get closer, I hope that you can lean into things and potentially think outside the box, because at the end of the day, wealth is about living intentionally. And ultimately, how do we measure that? Going back to the efficiency, we measure that by knowing where we want to go. So let's not be like an Alice in Wonderland, and let's get clear on where we want to go, and let's have our money and time and relationships and strategies working in a way that aligns that. Jayson, I'm going to hand it back over to you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to share this message. And I'm just so honored to be a part of this group.
Wow. Caleb, absolutely incredible. I'd like to invite everybody who's still with us. We've got 307 people with us. Go ahead and type in the chat window, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're excited, you're ready to take that next step and to schedule a call with the right person on my team. Or 1, you wished you would have been doing something entirely different with your time this evening. Go ahead. We'd like 307 responses in the chat window. Caleb, we're getting 10s, 11s.
Yeah. Sebastian, you're hilarious.
500.
You put a 9.8. You're hilarious. Go back to the joke store and work on your jokes.
10s,
wow,
10s.
You guys are amazing. Wow.
This is, wow, look at this.
I'm touched. And Jayson, we got connected through Greg. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys. And before Greg passed away, we came to Canada because this message meant so much to him, and he wanted his family, the people that he cared most about, to hear this message. And my goodness, I wish he was here. My goodness.
I miss him.
Guys.
He was a great guy.
Thank you guys so much.
And I do want to share, if I may, with everyone, just a couple of things. Now, you've all received a link via email or text inviting you to schedule a meeting. Go ahead, click that link or text the word schedule to 780-809-4599. Vern, if you can type that into the chat window, you can text the word schedule to 780-809-4599. Now, I want you to imagine something for a moment. I want to cast a bit of a vision for you into the future. I want you to imagine that it's 10 years into the future. You've set an appointment. You've connected with the right person on my team. You've made some decisions about your money for the rest of your life, and you decided to take control. And as you look back on those previous 10 years since you made that decision, you're smiling because you're in the best financial situation you've ever been. And that's not a dream. That's a real possibility. We have clients who are on this webinar this evening who have been practicing this process for the past decade. And that can happen for you when you start making the right decisions about your money. I want you to picture a day when financial control is in your hands, not the banks, not the government, or some risky stock market. Picture a day when your spouse leans over to you and says, thank you. Thank you for not making us wait 30 years to live the life financially that we deserve today. Now, you heard Caleb say earlier his vision, don't live a life of regrets. You deserve a life of no regrets. You deserve to be in control of your financial future. You deserve a lifetime of abundance. So join me, schedule your meeting, and let's get you the life that you deserve. Make it a great evening, everybody. And we're going to stick around for a while, but we respecting the use of everyone's time. Again, we sincerely thank you for joining us, for being a part of this amazing launch presentation, the AND asset for Canadians. Now, Caleb, this has been a long time coming.
Listen, I know technology's you're going to get the book for free, but I'm telling you, get a book.
Yeah.
Get a book. And get a book. And there's multiple people I'm reading. Like, I wish I would have known about this. Jayson, if I had $1 for every time someone said they wish they would have known about this, I would still be here, but I'd be a lot richer. All right. People, it's insane. It's insane. So I'm just asking selfishly, get a physical copy, and maybe get 2 and share it with someone that was not here. Because at the end of the day, you guys, like, regardless of what you think about the AND asset, there's a lot of money principles about efficiency, compounding, and it's so fun to hear from all you guys. Oh, by the way, I would love to hear from you guys too, because it's such an honor to be here, and I'm just super, it's incredible to see the chat.
And I'm going to share something that none of my teammates are even aware of. And I'm going to make this announcement in this webinar. And by picking up physical copies, plural, by getting your hands on copies of the AND asset for Canadians and getting this book in the hands of those who you believe would benefit from the gift, we're going to donate the net proceeds from every single sale of this book to food banks in all of the communities where we operate. And so you're not only going to feed your mind, you're also going to feed families. You're going to feed families who are in dire straits. And so give the gift of a meal and give yourself the gift of knowledge. Give your friends, neighbors, colleagues, coworkers, people that you love and care about the gift of this knowledge, because you are your greatest asset. And allow us to back up that statement. Get this book into the hands of the people that you love and care about. And I know that Devin, one of my teammates right now, is thinking, oh my goodness, how are we going to account for this? But I got to pull the pin on a positive grenade every now and then. And tonight was the opportunity to do that. Caleb, I love you, brother.
I love you too. And I just want to highlight your incredible team. Like, I've had the opportunity to have great conversations with Cole and Dan and Devin and Sarblo and Richard. You guys are incredible, and it's just so and all those that I have not mentioned. I can't wait to get to know you guys better, Roman, and I'm just so grateful. And I know that the work is just getting started. We're just getting started, and I'm grateful for everyone that made it a priority to be here. Like, your guys' time is your number one asset, 100%, your number one resource. And so I want you to know the fact that you guys are willing to stay on, incredible. And Jayson, I'm willing to stay on, answer some questions, have a dialogue. I'm here to serve, but I'm just so blown away by your incredible community and the people that showed up.
Thank you, Caleb. Sincerely, that means a lot. And for everyone still with us on the webinar who's viewing this, we have an incredible team at Ascendant, and it's much bigger than any one of us individually. Right from our advisory team to our amazing client services team, our operations team, our strategic assistants, our folks that we refer to as strategic partners inside of our organization, who are chartered accountants by trade and trust and estate planning, certified financial planning, our compliance, our marketing coordination, our executive leadership team. When you become a client of Ascendant, our entire team is at your disposal. And I also want to share with all of you that when you become a client, you also get access to our client portal. And I want to take you for a quick spin around the track inside of the client portal, because what's so amazing about this particular resource that we've put together is that you're able to navigate to all of the things that you want to know, that you want to re-reference, that you want to learn. You can go into the client portal and take advantage of all of the abundant resources that we've put together. Hey, I want to know how to access a policy loan. You go in, you click on taking out a policy loan. There's a short tutorial video. There's step-by-step instructions. It's really paint by numbers. And we also host group client quarterly coaching sessions. And so once every 90 days, you're invited to be a part of our rapidly growing community. And inside of those quarterly client coaching sessions, you're also able to go back into the portal and go into the archive and review them at any time, 24/7, 365. And this is all a result of us wanting to show up in the marketplace in a way that nobody else is showing up. We're adding new resources to the client portal almost on a daily basis. And all of that has been built for you, because at Ascendant, we are all accountable only to you. And so, Caleb, thank you for highlighting our team, because really all the credit goes to them. And to watch them do the great work and to serve in the way that they do day in and day out is just incredibly humbling. And I love our team. I can't speak highly enough of our team. Yep. Isn't it good?
It's incredible, man. It's incredible.
And thank you, Devin, for posting the link to the bookstore. And we appreciate that.
I want to highlight Aaron. Aaron bought 4 copies. My goodness.
Oh, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Guys, I can't wait till we can be in person. I'll sign every single book. I can't wait to be in person with you guys. A lot of signing to do.
And Caleb and I are going to be sharing many stages. Once we get the all clear on this COVID, we're going to be taking North America by storm.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible.
And for everyone who's typing in the Q&A window, thank you sincerely for doing that. Thank you, Ron, in particular, Ron Hill. Don't miss the opportunity to talk with an advisor. There's no pressure. They have your best interests at heart. You will not regret it. Thank you, Ron, sincerely. We appreciate that very much. And as evidenced by the 190 5-star Google reviews, which we're averaging anywhere from 10 to 20 5-star Google reviews a week. And so these are real people sharing their experience with our team. And my heart fills with joy every single time I get notified that another 5-star Google review has been left for us. Now, someone had indicated, and I don't know who this came from, so you'll have to forgive me. It may be Aaron. Thanks, Caleb. This was awesome. I encourage everyone to take the next steps to take control and make your money growth efficient. I am one of those who have been around 10 years. Best decision I ever made. Wow. Thank you. Thank you sincerely. And I know there are a number of existing clients who have been commenting in the chat window as well. It was amazing to see that interaction, so that people don't feel like a Lone Ranger. They can communicate and chat with other people who have been practicing this process for a number of years. All right. Did you have fun?
I had a blast.
I just loved shining just a bright light on you, Caleb. I love you dearly. And
I want to share when I met Jayson. When was it? 3 years ago?
4
years ago.
Yep.
You spoke at the Infinite Banking think tank, and I remember sitting in my chair. This is pre and asset, just thinking like I need to meet you because of your heart. It was super clear that you were just on fire for serving people. And I remember meeting you, and it's incredible, man, how one handshake, one conversation can translate into so many great memories. And so thank you. And I want to thank everyone that is here, and put it like, I'm just blown away by the amount of energy and the amount of people buying the book. And I'm really, really hoping that people take advantage of meeting with your team and sharing this message with more people. And I know that getting 1 million people insured is not gonna happen overnight, but I really, really appreciate the forces that you guys are in the northern North America. And so thank you, man. I'm so grateful.
All right. Likewise.